Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're reading another Amelia Jane story by Enid Blyton. Today's story is called Amelia Jane Has a Good Idea. The new teddy bear was very small indeed. The toys stared at him when he first came into the playroom, wondering what he was. "Good gracious, I believe you're a teddy bear," said Amelia Jane, the big naughty doll. "I thought you were a peculiar-shaped mouse." "Well, I'm not," said the small bear sharply and pressed himself in the middle. "Grrr! Hear me growl. Well, no mouse can growl, it can only squeak." "Yes, you're a bear all right," said Tom, coming up. "I hear you've come to live with us. Well, I'll show you your place in the toy cupboard, right at the back there, look." "I don't like being at the back, it's too dark," said the little bear. "I'll be at the front, here, by this big brick box." "Oh, no, you won't. That's my place when I want to sit in the toy cupboard," said Amelia Jane. "And let me tell you this, small bear, if you live with us, you'll have to take on lots of little bits of work. We all do. You'll have to wind up the clockwork clown when he runs down. You'll have to clean the doll's house windows, and you'll have to help the engine driver polish his big red train."
"Dear me, I don't think I want to do any of those things," said the bear. "I'm lazy. I don't like working." "Well, you'll just have to," said Amelia Jane. "Otherwise you won't get any of the biscuit crumbs that the children drop on the floor. You won't get any of the sweets in the toy sweet shop, and we're allowed some every week. And you won't come to any parties. So there." "Pooh!" said the bear, and stalked off to pick up some beads out of the bead box and thread himself a necklace. "He's vain as well as lazy," said Tom in disgust. "Hey, bear, what's your name, or are you too lazy to have one?" "My name is Sydney Gordon Eustace," said the bear haughtily, "and please remember that I don't like being called Sid." "Sid!" yelled all the toys at once, and the bear looked furious. He turned his head away and went on threading the beads. "Sydney Gordon Eustace," said the clown with a laugh. "I guess he gave himself those names. No sensible child would ever call a teddy bear that, huh?" The bear was not much use in the playroom. He just would not do any of the jobs there at all. He went surprisingly deaf when anyone called him to come and clean or polish or sweep. He would pretend to be asleep, or just walk about humming a little tune as if nobody was calling his name at all. It was most annoying. "Sydney, come and shake the mats for the doll's house, dolls," Tom called. No answer from Sydney at all. "Sydney, come here. You're not as deaf as all that." The bear never even turned his head. "Hey, Sydney Gordon Eustace, come and do your jobs," yelled Tom. "Sid, Sid, Sid!" No answer. "All right," shouted Tom angrily. "You shan't have that nice big crumb of chocolate biscuit we found under the table this morning." It was always the same whenever there was a job to be done. "Sydney, come here!" But Sydney never came. He never did one single thing for any of the toys. "What are we going to do about him?" said the big teddy bear. "Amelia Jane, can't you think of a good idea?" "Oh, yes," said Amelia Jane at once. "I know what we'll do. We'll get Sydney the mouse to come and do the things that Sydney the bear should do, and he shall have all the crumbs and tidbits that the bear should have. He won't like that, a little house mouse getting all his treats." "Dear me, is the house mouse's name Sydney too?" said Tom in surprise. "I never knew that before. When we want him, we usually go to his hole and shout, 'Mouse,' and he comes." "Well, I'll go and shout 'Sydney,'" said Amelia Jane, "and you'll see, he'll come." So she went to the little hole at the bottom of the wall near the bookcase and shouted down it, "Sydney, Sid, Sid, Sydney, we want you." The little bear, of course, didn't turn around. He wasn't going to come when his name was called. But someone very small came scampering up the passage to the hole entrance. It was the tiny brown house mouse with bright black eyes and twitching whiskers. "Ah, Sydney," said Amelia Jane, "will you just come and shake the mats in the doll's house, please? They are very dusty. We'll give you a big chocolate biscuit crumb and a drink of lemonade out of the little teapot, if you will." "Can I drink out of the spout?" said the tiny mouse, pleased. "I like drinking out of the spout." "Yes, of course," said Amelia Jane. The little mouse set about shaking the mats vigorously, and the job was soon done. "Isn't Sydney wonderful?" said Amelia in a loud voice to the others. Sydney the mouse, I mean, of course, not silly Sydney the bear. He wouldn't have the strength to shake the mats like that, poor thing. Sydney here's the chocolate biscuit crumb, and there's the teapot full of lemonade. Sydney the bear didn't like this at all. Fancy making a fuss of a silly little mouse and giving him treats like that. He would very much have liked the crumb and the lemonade himself. He pressed himself in the middle and growled furiously when the mouse had gone. "Don't have that mouse here again," he said. "I don't like hearing someone else being called Sydney. Anyway, I don't believe his name is Sydney. It's not a name for a mouse." "Well, for all you know, his name might be Sydney Gordon Eustace, like yours," said Amelia Jane at once. "Pooh, who ever heard of a mouse having a grand name like that?" said the bear. "Well, next time you won't do a job, we'll call all 3 names down the hole," said Amelia, "and see if the little mouse will answer to them." Next night there was going to be a party. Everyone had to help get ready for it. Amelia Jane called to the little bear, "Sydney, come and set the tables for the party. Sydney, do you hear me?" Sydney did, but he pretended not to, of course. Set party tables? Not he. So he went deaf again and didn't even turn his head. "Sydney Gordon Eustace, do as you're told or you won't come to the party," bawled the big teddy bear in a fine old rage. The little bear didn't answer. Amelia Jane gave a sudden grin. "Never mind," she said. "We'll get Sydney Gordon Eustace the little mouse to come and set the tables. He does them beautifully and never breaks a thing. He can come to the party afterwards then. I'll call him." The little bear turned his head. "He won't answer to that name. You know he won't," he said scornfully. "Call away. No mouse ever had a name as grand as mine." Amelia Jane went to the mouse hole and called down it. "Sydney Gordon Eustace, are you there?" she called. "If you are at home, come up and help us." "Sydney Gordon Eustace, are you there?" And at once there came the pattering of tiny feet, and with a loud squeak the mouse peeped out of his hole, his whiskers quivering. "Ah, you are at home," said Amelia. "Well, dear little Sydney, will you set the tables for us? We're going to have a party." The mouse was delighted. He was soon at work, and in a short while the 4 tables were set with tiny tablecloths and china. Then he went to help the doll's house dolls to cut sandwiches. The bear watched all of this out of the corner of his eye. He was quite amazed that the mouse had come when he was called Sydney Gordon Eustace. Goodness, fancy a little mouse owning a name like that. He was very cross when he saw that the mouse was going to the party. Amelia Jane found him a red ribbon to tie around his neck and one for his long tail. He was given a place at the biggest table and everyone made a fuss of him. "Good little Sydney, you do work well. Whatever should we do without you? What will you have to eat?" The mouse ate a lot. Much too much, the little bear thought. He didn't go to the party. He hadn't been asked, and he didn't quite like to go because there was no chair for him and no plate. But oh, all those nice things to eat. Why hadn't he been sensible and gone to set the tables? "Good night, Sydney Gordon Eustace," said Amelia to the delighted mouse. "We've loved having you." Now, after this kind of thing had happened 3 or 4 times, the bear got tired of it. He hated hearing people yell for "Sydney, Sydney" down the mouse hole, or to hear the mouse addressed as Sydney Gordon Eustace. It was really too bad. Also, the mouse was getting all the titbits and the treats. The bear didn't like that either. So the next time that there was a job to be done, the bear decided to do it. He suddenly heard Tom say, "Hello! The big red engine is very smeary. It wants a polish again. I'll go and call Sydney." Tom went to the mouse hole and began to call down it, "Sydney, Sydney, Sydney!" But before the mouse could answer, Sydney the bear rushed up to Tom. "Yes, did you call me? What do you want me to do?" "Dear me, you're not as deaf as usual," said Tom, surprised. "Well, go and polish the red engine then. You can have a sweet out of this toy sweet shop if you do it properly." Sydney did do it properly. Tom came and looked at the engine, and so did Amelia Jane. "Very nice," said Amelia Jane. "Give him a big sweet, Tom." The bear was pleased. Aha! He had done the mouse out of a job. The toys had been pleased with him, and the sweet was delicious. And after that, dear me, you should have seen Sydney the bear rush up whenever his name was called. "Yes, yes, here I am. What do you want me to do?" Very soon the little mouse was not called up from the hole anymore, and Sydney the bear worked hard and was friendly and sensible. The toys began to like him, and Sydney liked them too. But one thing puzzled Tom and the big teddy bear, and they asked Amelia Jane about it. "Amelia Jane, how did you know that the mouse's name was Sydney Gordon Eustace?" "It isn't," said Amelia with a grin. "But it must be," said Tom. "He always came to you when you called him by it." "I know, but he'd come if you called any name down his hole," said Amelia. "Go and call what name you like. He'll come. It's the calling he answers, not the name. He doesn't even know what names are." "Good gracious," said Tom and the bear, and they went to the mouse hole. "William," called Tom, and up came the mouse. He was given a crumb and went down again. "Polly Wolly Doodle," shouted the big bear, and up came the mouse for another crumb. "Boot polish," shouted Tom, and up came the mouse. "Tomato soup," cried the big bear. And it didn't matter what name was yelled down the hole, the mouse always came up. He came because he heard a loud shout. That was all. Amelia Jane went off into fits of laughter when the mouse came up at different calls. "Penny stamp, cough drop, Sid, 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 dickory dock, rub-a-dub-dub." The mouse's nose appeared at the hole each time. How all the toys laughed, all except Sydney the bear. He didn't laugh. He felt very silly indeed. Oh dear, what a trick Amelia Jane had played on him. But suddenly he began to laugh too. "It's funny," he cried. "It's funny." It certainly was. Amelia would think of a good idea like that, wouldn't she? The end. See you next time.